Hi there. Have you ever gone to your home improvement store, bought a pesticide, brought it home, peeled the label off, and then tried to read it only to find that the thing is just huge? It's got many, many pages and it's overwhelming. Well, I can help. I'm going to take you through this label. It's for an insecticide commonly used just on regular gardens and vegetable gardens. And I'm going to point out the parts of the label that I think are the most important for you to understand to protect yourself and the environment. So the most important piece of information on the label is actually always on the first page, and that's the first aid section. This is where you're going to find instructions for what to do in case you get the pesticide on your skin or clothing, if you get it in your eyes, if you accidentally swallow it. It's also going to have a poison control number and instructions for a physician in case symptoms are so bad that you need treatment. The next section of the label I want to take you through is precautionary statements. And this always starts with a signal word. In the example of my insecticide, that signal word is caution. The signal word corresponds to toxicity studies that are done before the product can be registered and sold. So toxicity category of 1, which would be products that have the highest toxicities, that gets a signal word of danger. The next most toxic is category 2. They get a signal word of warning. And toxicity category 3 gets caution, which is what my pesticide falls under. Now toxicity category 4, so those are the least toxic, doesn't need to have a signal word, although the US EPA allows producers of products such as these to put caution on the label if they would like. So what that means with my pesticide, because it has a caution on it, it either fell under toxicity category 3 or 4. Now this section also has some important instructions on what type of protective clothing you should wear. So things like long sleeves, long pants, and if there's a danger from inhalation, it will give you a warning about wearing a mask or respirator. The last section within the precautionary statements is the environmental hazards section. And this is where you'll get instructions on how to minimize the hazard to the environment when you use the product. So in the case of our insecticide, it states that this is hazardous to some aquatic organisms. And so it tells you not to use the product on water, and then also to make sure that when you use it, there aren't any wind or rain events within 24 hours to keep the product from washing into water sources. There's also a bee caution statement on this product, which makes sense because it's an insecticide. And so it tells you that you shouldn't use the product when flowers are blooming, because that's of course when bees would be attracted and present and could potentially be affected. The last section of the label I'll cover is the directions for use. And this always starts with a warning that essentially tells you that the label is the law. And so if you use the pesticide and you don't follow the label instructions, in effect, you're breaking federal law and you're going to jail. No, I'm kidding. You won't go to jail. The EPA isn't going to show up and arrest me if I use this insecticide and it rains the next day, but you should take it seriously. All of the label instructions are based on scientific data, and so they should be followed in order to keep you and the environment as safe as possible. This section also lists restrictions to keep you, other people, and pets safe when the pesticide's used. So in this case, this pesticide is sprayed, and so there are instructions saying that people and pets should be kept out of the area where it is used until it has dried. Also in the directions for use are specific instructions that are important if the pesticide is one that's used on vegetable crops. So in my example, there's a table and it lists the PHI and the APP. So the PHI is the pre-harvest interval, and it's going to tell you how many days must pass after you use the pesticide before you can harvest the crop. So in my case, if I was going to spray this on asparagus, I would need to wait 1 day before I harvested it. However, if I was growing black-eyed peas and I used the pesticide, I would have to wait 21 days before I could go back in and harvest that. Now the APP gives you the number of times you can use the pesticide in a year. So in that asparagus example, I could use this pesticide on asparagus 3 times in a year. For black-eyed peas, I could use it 4 times in a year. Following the PHI allows time to pass before the crop is consumed. During this time, the pesticide is doing what it's supposed to be doing, but it's also degrading, so that by the time the crop is harvested, there's so little pesticide residue left that there won't be a hazard. The APP also relates to the residue level left, as it keeps you from using more than you should in a year on a crop. So those are the parts of the label that I think are the most important for you to understand to keep yourself and the environment as safe as possible when using these tools. If you really want to get further into how a label is constructed, I would say check out the US EPA Label Review Manual. It's pretty dense though, but it'll give you every detail you would ever want about EPA pesticide labels. So I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. If you have questions about a label you want me to answer, feel free to email me and I will do my best to provide that answer. Bye.